Welcome back to part 2 of the Buttercup sketchbook process video. Now I have my drawings all laid out and my notes are all inked in with waterproof ink, so I'm going to start mixing up some paint to paint in my flowers. And again, I'm not spending tons of time painting. The beauty of this is just to capture your observations, your experience in nature. So I'm just mixing up a few different yellows. I have a warm yellow, a cool yellow, and I've also used some titanium white to mix in to make more of a pastel yellow. And if you are a member of the Watercolor Garden, then you can check out all my colors in the materials section. Lemon yellow and Gamboge Nova are the two yellows I use the most, which is my cool and warm yellow. So I'm just mixing those up, and then I've also added some sap green in with some lemon yellow for the leaves, and then I'm making sort of a brownish color for some of the seed pods with some of the warm yellow and permanent yellow orange and light red. So these will be sort of my seed pod colors. You don't have to use the exact colors I use. You can choose to do this same study with a buttercup or even a different flower you find and just use the same sort of ideas from it, of like the layout of drawings and stuff. So now I have my kneaded eraser and I'm just sort of kneading it to get it a bit freshened up, and then I'll lighten up some of the graphite before I start painting. I'm mostly using my number 2 brush for these, and I just removing a cat hair, and I am just sort of using my 3-step method loosely. I'm just adding in some basic step 1 shape colors there, but I'm choosing some of the warm and cool mixes. So some petals are warm and some petals are cool. If you want more explanation on all of the ways I use my 3-step method for painting botanicals in detail, then the best thing to do is watch the Birth Flowers series. Any of those painting tutorials go in a lot of detail into all of the techniques of the painting, whereas these videos, the process videos I'm calling them, are a little bit more focused on the entire process that you can then apply to your own painting rather than going into every single detail of the technique. You can see there that I've added in the green. I put in the sepals. I made sure the paint wasn't completely dry when I was doing the sepals because I wanted them to bleed a little bit. And now I'm just dragging down a singular line to paint in the stems of the buttercup. So what I've done now is painted the buds and the flower in, and you can see on that other flower I added the green in while the yellow was still wet because I wanted that color to bleed and blend a little bit. And then now I've taken a darker green, and you can just mix in neutral tint to the green you're using if you'd like. And then I'm making the areas darker where stems join up or where they're underneath a flower, or where things overlap. And this is part of that 3-step method and just creating more contrast. You want to exaggerate your contrast compared to real life so that you get your sort of 3-dimensional look. And so I'm skipping over some of the areas. I want to keep the original green layer visible as well in some of the areas. Now I'm just finishing up this leaf here, and probably should have used a 00 brush to make that stem thinner. But don't worry, just have a faith because things will come together as you add in more detail with step 2 and 3. Right now that's just step 1, the first layer. And if you were doing just a focus on one leaf and it was a very formal portrait, then maybe I wouldn't be happy with that. But this is a sketchbook study, so we're just creating a bunch of things together, and that's what I love about this. You can be a bit more casual with your painting. Back to number 2 brush, I've added in some cool, now some warm petals there, and I'm just dragging, pressing and dragging and filling the shape. And I am keeping in mind using my dip dab method. And again, if you're not familiar with the dip dab method, go back to the tip video library and you can check that out with the 3-step painting method how-to video. And then I just switched to a 00 brush to just add in that little stem, making it a bit like a cylinder, and then dragging some of the green in on purpose so that it blends out and makes it sort of imply the sepal area. Now I'm going to paint in this little section of the stem, and it's showing a close-up and cross-section of the cut edge of the stem. And this can be important for plant ID and also interesting as you find plants, because not all stems are actually round. Some of them are more like a rectangle. They have sort of ridges and then a flat edge, 4 flat edges. So this one is a cylinder, so it's round, but that's not always the case. And these are those small little details that help you learn about plants, and then they'll help you improve your observation and detail of a more formal portrait when you decide to do that instead of the sketchbook study. So this is my very casual habit sketch or little paint sketch of the buttercup in the field. So I'm showing how it grows in the field and that they're tall stems with multiple flowers and clusters on top and little buds, and then there's going to be some grass growing in between. And again, this does not have to be perfect or very detailed at all. When you add this in with your other paintings, it will really enhance the botanical sort of illustration style of your sketchbook study. And again, there are artists out there that do this all in very great detail and take days and days and hours to do it, which is really great. I do not have that much time or patience, so I prefer to do it this way, and then it all comes together as a page at the end. So now I'm just adding some final details with step 3 in my 00 brush. Just going through, making sure I have enough contrast, adding in any little bits of details where I've missed something that I think I should show it, or things are just too pale and washed out. And this really is fun. It's just sort of taking a step back, looking at the final page, and then also adding in things like the leaf veins and stuff like that, which will again really bring things to life. And this page doesn't have to take you very long. I think maybe took an hour to do the collection and observations and drawings, and maybe another hour to paint it all. So if you had a free afternoon, you could certainly complete something like this, or you could do it in 1 or 2 sittings and not worry too much about it being perfect, but just having fun and creating a collection of many of these pages. So, not just one page, but just taking a sketchbook and deciding that you'll fill up each page with a study like this of plants you find throughout the year.